take it. Got it! Boston wins! Two legends in basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast. NBA, some college.
Got a good one today, folks. A lot of history stuff. We will go back in the Bob Ryan time machine coming up. And you are listening to the Bob Ryan, Gary Tanguay podcast, a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. The show is brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today and use code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. Prizepicks, run your game. Robert, 2-1, Pacers in front. Talk about a team that never says die. It looked like at the beginning of the game, OKC was going to finally restore order. However, Mr. Carlisle and company had other thoughts.
What we have here is a perfectly appropriate series, 7 games for a reason, between two teams that are not that far apart in talent, although despite the fact what some people think. I know on paper it looks, people that don't pay attention think, well, one team won 68 and the other one, wherever the hell. The team that won 68's got to be substantially better. But Indiana, since the beginning of January, has been one of the handful of best teams in the league. And so you forget about anything that happened in November and December. They're perfectly legitimate. Okay. Also, I don't know what the odds were last night, and I don't care. All I know is Game 3, a home team winning Game 3 in an NBA series of best of 7 is not exactly a news bulletin worthy of it. Is that's quite logical. Indiana held serve at home. That's what they did. Okay. Now Game 4 will be very interesting. Okay. Now, so that's number one. Now, how did they do it? My big interesting takeaway from the from the first 3 games, the team, if anything else, the team that has come up with the great bench contribution has won the last 2 games. We know that. Game 2, it was Alex Caruso and Aaron Wiggins for Oklahoma City. Last night, it was first TJ O'Connell and then definitely Benedict Mathurin for Indiana. And by the way, Aaron Wiggins, after having gotten 18 points, played 21 minutes, went 6 for 11 on overall, 5 for 8 on threes in Game 2, 18 points. Last night, 10 minutes, bagel. 0 for 2, period, 0 points. I mean, I don't have an explanation. Why he only played 10 minutes, I have no idea after what he did. That's up to Mark Daniel. But just so you know, and very interesting. Okay. And I got one more takeaway that all right, let's go to where you would like to go with our home squad versus these guys.
Yeah,
okay?
Sure. Okay, so if Tatum's healthy, the Celtics team that was in the postseason this year, how would they do against either one of these? Let's start with the Pacers.
Oh, it's dependent. To me, they would match up fine. They would do fine. They on paper. I mean, in theory, we know the Celtics won 61 games themselves. We know what they are. They're a defending champion. They weren't quite the same this year. One reason being the frequent unavailability of Kristaps Porzingis. Okay, we know that. Okay, but at their best, they could play very easily with these 2 teams. But here's something that just to amplify something, that a theme we and I say we, not just you and me, not just you, me, and Gary, but the basketball world in Boston has been harping on incessantly now, and that is this: the reliance on the 3.
That's why I wanted to talk about this.
Okay. In Game 1, Indiana shot 18 for 39 on threes. That's fine. But they were 40% on twos. And Oklahoma City in Game 1 shot 11 for 30 on threes, but they shot 45% on twos. In Game 2, Indiana was 14 for 40 on threes, and they shot 55% on twos, 23 for 42. Oklahoma City was 14 for 36 on threes, and they shot, are you ready? 57% on twos, 26 for 46. And then last night, Oklahoma City in defeat was 10 for 22 on three, but very respectable 47% on twos. However, Indiana, 9 for 27, 33%. Stick your tongue out on threes, 60% on twos, 35 for 58. Guess who won the game? So I think the lesson is clear. Will the Celtics, i.e. Joe Mazzulla, ever learn it? Twos aren't a bad thing. Forget about Daryl Morey-fication of basketball. There are times when it makes very good sense to go for two. And last night, Indiana proved that. Thank you very much.
Excellent point. We're on the same page. That's why I thought of it, because as I was watching this, and I hadn't even looked at the numbers, just that number 60, the first game, 63-point attempts by the Celtics in game one, just was like pounding in my head against the Knicks. Pounding in my head. It's like, when you see those commercials, Bob, now for like cholesterol or something, and they have the big cholesterol number above your head, and I'm like, I'm like, that's above my head. I'm like, I haven't really, as I've watched this series so far, I haven't really thought about a three. It's been kind of in the flow of the game, but I haven't been thinking three. I just been thinking basketball.
No,
I just been thinking basketball, and I went, and then after last night's game, I mean, you mentioned what they took. You said Indiana took 29 threes?
27.
27 threes. The Celtics took 60 in a game. They took 60 in a game. Joe Mazzulla, Brad Stevens, please wake up and smell the coffee. End of story. That's it. That's what I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Well,
thank you.
The numbers are irrefutable here with Indiana.
Just so, my God. And so much fun to watch. Like, Bob, last night's game, first, TJ O'Connell, who you love, he's great coming off the bench. There's always guys that come up. You mentioned the contributions from the bench. Every game, there's going to be somebody you haven't heard of. There's, I call it the Glenn McDonald Award. There's like a Glenn McDonald Award. That's what makes the series great.
Yeah.
That's what makes it great. So I just was thinking about that last night. It was just a basketball game.
A very good game.
Good game.
I wish that during the court, now if I were covering, I would have known, because I would keep track of these things very meticulously. But I would love to have known. At one point, I wrote some notes, of course.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I got a note. Okay. It's 98-96. I don't know how much time was left, okay? And I got a note. So far, 4 is a big lead in this game for either team.
Right.
That's the kind of game. I wish they had told me how many ties and lead changes there were. I haven't seen it in print from anybody. That's something I always would have focused on, just for the fun. Okay. So it was a wonderful game from a neutral standpoint to watch. I thought it was absolutely outstanding. And so, and I think so many games in the playoffs have been very good. And I think we can look forward to some more excellent basketball games between these two teams, the way they play, the way they approach the game. So, who's going to be the bench guy? There'll be somebody. We don't know which guy it's going to be. And interesting though, Wiggins, you wonder what was going on there with after the game he played. Right. He plays 10 minutes. I never heard his name, I mean,
but Bob, that's why they're a bench player.
Yeah.
They come and go. They're up and down.
Yeah, well, he's had 40-point games, which I didn't know until this series.
But he's inconsistent though. He's always,
Yeah, but anyway.
So what else about this series? Like, as you look ahead, Bob, what are you thinking? Like, what's in your give me the pros and cons for each team.
Oh, no, I mean, it's not, I don't know, just about who plays a little better on that night. And I think now turnovers, both. Yes. The team that stopped that last night, OKC had 18 turnovers, and Indiana in the second quarter had 0 turnovers.
Yeah, I saw, I read one comp, like SGA had, I think, like 6 or 8 turnovers, which is high.
Yeah. So that hurt them. And no question is that the game, it wasn't a 1-point game, but it was a game that was close, contested down to the last minute and a half.
Yeah.
No turnovers. So this is not rocket science, in basketball, but it is a factor that each team has had their moments where they've been turning the ball over too much. And last night it was OKC's turn. So that's going to be a focal point of conversation Mark Daigneault with the boys. As you know, there's turnovers when they tee it up again, and so Rick's going to caution his guys about take care of the ball. These are teams that they play nice basketball. They play, they just do. And Oklahoma City's got that smothering defense, and Indiana's got that fast break capacity. Now, I don't remember that they got any baskets after made baskets last night, which they did in the first,
right.
Which means OKC was obviously paying strict attention. We're getting back because Indiana, if they get a chance, they will do that. And but they didn't get any done last night. And no, but in terms of with your question, I don't know how the game unfolds. Another guy that was no factor last night that has been a factor, and I suspect I'm sure will be a factor again, was Hartenstein. Hartenstein played no significant role last night, but he's definitely played a significant role the night before. And there you go. I mean, I'm just looking forward to see. And of course, we know was the answer completely settled about Haliburton and getting off to a better start. It was more somewhat, he's not ever going to go crazy on you. He just won't. He's not.
I mean, I think he had 12 points in the first half, which was much improved over the previous.
Better than taking 2 shots in the first 2.5 periods.
Right. It's not that he went out and lit it up, but he's got to do it again.
No, he's got to find the happy medium. He is who he is. He's a distributor at heart. He's a distributor at heart who can shoot and play. But he wants to set up other guys. There's no question. And I keep going back to what Doc Rivers told me when I asked him about it a couple of weeks ago, and about tell me what's something that intrigues you or impresses you or that you admire or respect, whatever, about the Pacers. And the one thing he told me was the judgment of Haliburton, the idea of he knows when to pass and when to shoot as well as anybody. And I mean, in so many words.
I have one more question on this series, then we're going to get back into the Bob Bryant time machine and go back to 1957. But first, I have to tell you that Prizepicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks. We got the NBA playoffs. We got the championship. It's the only series left. It's a good one. Bob and I are talking about it, and that means time is running out for you to put in your final takes with Prizepicks, the best place to get cash on your favorite sports. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Look, it's more or less. It's really simple. And you know something? You can get a brain freeze doing this sometimes. Because I've done that. Like, for example, SGA had 24 the other night. You would never think the guy would get below 30. But maybe in the next game, he's probably going to get more than 24. So you would go more. It's that simple. There you go. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. The code is CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks. Run your game. I just want to get in a little more on the Celtics because you talked about you think it would be a good series. How would the Celtics do against this OKC team right now?
Oh, why wouldn't they do? I mean, I know they lost both games, right? The regular season this year. Okay, I don't know the circumstances. They'd have to go back and see the.
But your opinion really hasn't changed on the Celtics because after they lost to the Knicks. Like if they're healthy.
Yeah, they were, Tatum's that was the final blow. They were not playing.
Right. Yeah.
But we know, we now know. Hey, Jaylen Brown's going under surgery.
Right.
As we speak. Okay. Jrue Holiday had a hamstring. Porzingis, he wasn't anywhere near himself.
Well, see, this is the thing, Bob. This is the reason I bring it up. So let's say Porzingis and Holiday, they are what they are. They're not the same that they were last year.
Yeah.
Tatum and Brown are healthy. How does that team do against OKC or even Indiana? Because the point I'm trying to make here, and I'm not doing a very good job of it, is the Celtics bench wasn't there this year. And the bench for Indy and OKC is.
Oh, I think the answer to your question is they would have done very well to lose in 6.
Yeah.
That's what I think would have happened.
Yeah, because the bench don't have the bench.
They would have lost in 6, and I think OKC.
I could have done a better job of setting up the situation, but that's what I look at it now as I go, because some people go, well, if they beat the Knicks, I go, yeah, but you know what? Porzingis and Holiday just weren't the same guys. I'm not blaming them. It's father time. It's the way it works. But that's what I see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a realistic appraisal.
Yeah.
Right.
1957.
Uh,
Where were you in 1957?
Seventh grade, I believe. And let's see, sixth, seventh, eight, nine, sixth grade. Right, in the spring. So it was the 56, 57 school year. Sixth grade, Sister Mary Angela. Oh boy, was she something. But anyway, that's another story. The finals in 57 had one of the most interesting background. There will never be another background to equal the pairing in those finals of the Boston Celtics and the St. Louis Hawks. It all began back at draft day when the Celtics and Hawks made a trade. Bill Russell was available. Boston Celtics wanted Bill Russell, who, by the way, Red Auerbach drafted without ever having actually seen him play. He drafted him on the recommendation of his college coach, Bill Reinhardt, period. I know, hard to imagine today, but that was the world in 1956. Russell, despite his notoriety, 2 NCAA championships, an Olympic gold medal, Red never happened to have caught any of those games. He just know what his coach told him and what people were saying, that he was the guy to go get him the ball. They needed to come by the guy to go get him the ball. Okay. They make a trade with the St. Louis Hawks. They trade Ed McCauley, who was a Celtic retired number 22, and the rights to Cliff Hagan, who had been drafted by the Celtics after coming out of Kentucky, along with Frank Ramsey, and had to go into service. So he had not played as a rookie with the Celtics because he was in the service. That's the old days, by the way, folks. Guys went in the Army often. So they trade the two of them for the rights to Hagan and for and McCauley was quite okay, despite his comfort in Boston, going home. He's from St. Louis. He's a Billiken. Went to the University of St. Louis U, and he's a hometown boy. He had an ill child. I don't know exactly what the nature of the illness was, but he was happy to go back home and have him treated at home and among families around and so forth. So he didn't object to the idea that Red was going to trade him. He didn't take it as an insult or anything. So, okay. So there's the background there. Number 2, Red Auerbach once worked for the owner of the St. Louis Hawks, Ben Kerner. He was his boss with the Tri-Cities Hawks in the late 40s, who fired Red. So Red is now going to go into this series again. We got the background of Bill Russell, who has shown the world who he is by this time, and against the Hawks. The Hawks don't even have a 500 record. They're 34-48, but there was only 4 teams in the division. They beat the Minneapolis Lakers to get there, and there they are. Okay, so we got the background there of the trade and the ramifications, and St. Louis taking a look. I have to go back up. Why was St. Louis willing to relinquish the rights to Russell? The supposition, and I am merely parroting what I've read for 60 plus years. All right, St. Louis was famous as being, quote, and I quote what is being said, the northernmost southern city in America. The racial climate was not good in St. Louis, Missouri in 1956. And they weren't interested in a black player, period. They did not want one on their roster. And so Russell was expendable in their eyes because he was black. He was African. He was colored. He was a Negro. These are phrases of the time. Okay, fine. So this is the background to the series. And but the Hawks, despite their record, they matched up fairly well. They had the great Bob Pettit, who, so people should know, there was a long period of time before the advent of Larry Bird and LeBron and Durant and a few others. The all-time team at the time, Pettit was a lock as starting forward on the all-time team. He's a great 6'9" forward. Okay, Bob Pettit was a wonderful player, and McCauley still had something left. I looked up. McCauley averaged 17 points a game for them that year. He still had something left. Hagan was a rookie and breaking in. He was an auxiliary player. Okay, so and that was the match. Oh, Cousy nemesis, if he had one. And he always said the toughest guy for him to play against was Slater Martin. Well, guess where Slater Martin had just come from? Minneapolis to St. Louis. He's on the Hawks. So Cousy's up against his nemesis. And so they actually matched up reasonably well. Forget about the records. The Celtics, by the way, were 48-34. Not like they romped, So anyway, all right. Game 1 set the tone. I got it here. Wait a minute. Yeah. Game 1. Double overtime to kick off the NBA Finals, okay? Jack Coleman of the Hawks, who will factor in later down the road, and very importantly, hit a winning shot at the end of a shot clock to create the final score. Celtics did not score afterward. Pettit had 37 points. So we initiate this with St. Louis beating the favorite Celtics 120 in Boston, 125-123 in double overtime. Celtics rebound with a predictable bounce back in game 2. They win by 20. Game 3. Before the game, Red Auerbach observed the rim, the basket, and thought it was too short. And the reason he said Cousy and Sharman could touch it, they could touch the rim. He said, there's something suspicious there if Cousy and Sharman can touch the rim. So he tells the referees, and the referees okay a measurement of the basket. I don't know. Well, Ben Kerner was incensed. He thought Auerbach was trying to show him up. Okay. And they got into an argument, and Red punched the owner of nothing happened. It was before the game. Okay. Now let's play. So, the Hawks go on and win by 2, 100-98, to take a 2-1 lead in the series. Game 4, Celtics bounce back, 123-118. Game 5, they win 124-109. Game 6 in St. Louis, with St. Louis fighting for its life. If they win it on a tip-in of a missed shot. Pettit missed a shot after Cousy missed a free throw, could have put the game away. And the Hawks come down and score, and they win by 2, 96-94, and force a seventh game in Boston. Okay. April 15th, 13th, I think it was, 1957. I think it was a Saturday afternoon. I'm not sure about that. We have the first Game 7 in Boston Garden history. Now, you have to keep in mind, the Celtics prior to this had never been to a finals. They had never gotten out of it, had never been to a finals at all. Okay. So it is an epic game. And at the near end of regulation, the Hawks were up by 1, and Russell had just have run off the court on a fast break. And Jack Coleman, who is a good athlete, 6'7", is heading down the court, and he's way ahead of the pack. And he's going to put a basket that's going to put them up. They're going to win up by 3. Russell runs him down, blocks the shot. Both Bob Cousy and Tom Heinsohn told me more than once, and told other people repeatedly, it's the greatest play they ever saw in their career. So that Russell's, how he ever did that, they'll never know. And then the Celtics did pull the game out in double overtime. And guess who got the 2 winning free throws that Jim Lusketoff. Lusky made the 2 winning free throws, but not before the Hawks had one more chance. Now, I got to back up. Alex Hannum was the player coach of the Hawks. When the season started, the coach was, you ready for this? A guy you might have heard about, Red Holtzman.
Really?
Red Holtzman was the original coach of the team.
Wow.
He was fired when they were at 14-19. He was fired after game 33. He was replaced by Slater Martin as a player coach. Slater had no interest in coaching. And they eventually gave it to Alex Hannum, who was an itinerant journeyman forward who had moved around. They had picked him up and made him the player coach. And he seldom played at all, but he was especially a player as well as a coach. So Alex Hannum, who had not played 1 second in this game, inserts himself to make it the big play. What he's going to do is I don't know exactly how much time was left, a couple of seconds, okay? He is going to throw the ball the length of the court off the backboard and hope that Pettit can get it and score. He throws the ball the length of the court. Now that's not that easy, you know, and he does because he's a big, strong guy. He throws the ball length of the court. The ball, I don't know whether it ricocheted off the rim, but it ricocheted back out, and Pettit got a hold of it and put it up, and it hung in the rim and fell off. Or else we would have been in the third overtime.
So it almost worked. Almost
yeah,
worked.
that's how it ended. That's how the
Wow.
first Celtic championship was guaranteed on a almost miraculous play by Pettit. That was some inauguration for Boston's playoff finals history. I'll tell you, seldom has there been any better, more riveting, dramatic 7-game series in their entire history than the first one. And by the way, Kuzi and Heinsohn and Red, and Russ, they all said the first one, was special. First one's the best one. Russell wore 2 rings, by the way, habitually. The first championship and the last in 1969. But they all cherished that first championship. You can imagine.
Tommy had 20 rebounds in that final game.
Oh, I buried the lead. Oh, okay, folks, ready for this? Kuzi and Sharman, who were the habitual all-league backcourt. I mean, Kuzi, in the 50s, first team. Kuzi Sharman, okay? Kuzi's at his peak. Kuzi and Sharman shot a combined 5 for 40. Kuzi was 3 for 20 and Sharman was 2 for 20 or vice versa. Thank God, rookie Tom Heinsohn, the rookie of the year, 37 points and 23 rebounds before fouling out. And Russell, 19 points and 32 rebounds. So the rookies gave them 59 points, 32 and 55 rebounds. So they saved their life, the 2 rookies. Yes. Well, Kuzi and Sharman were going 5 for 40, 4-0.
Tommy always enjoyed it when we brought that up.
Of course, he should be totally proud. Should have been totally proud.
Well, I think his point was, and I'm paraphrasing here, and obviously Bob and Tommy were great friends. They did Holy Cross games together, Celtics games. But I think it was something to the point where the veterans, I think, were too smart, so they were tense. And maybe the rookies were too dumb, so they weren't. It was like, seriously, it was like lack of experience. They didn't know any better. They just played free. Like Tommy just said, we just went out and, and the vets were maybe feeling it a little bit. Well,
it is true that Kuz and Sharman were very intense personalities.
Right. So they were tight.
And Kuz was not just intense. He was a classic emotional Gallic fellow, French-born, French. Folks, not his family were immigrants from France, and he spoke French in the Lower East Side the first 5 years of his life. But he's very emotional and very, very, very took things to heart. And Sharman was a perfectionist kind of guy, and very intense, very, very intense. And but those numbers are staggering numbers on both sides. Staggering numbers for Kuzi and Sharman and for Hudson and Russell. But that's part of the fun of that, and I talked to people, when I came along as a young, snippy writer in the 1960s, talking to guys that had covered it, and they rhapsodized about that day, that game, how much they just rhapsodized about Game 7 in 1957. One of the great days in Celtic history.
And Tommy Heinsohn was so laid back in his later years. I mean, Tommy was pushing 80, and he'd be in the studio because he wasn't traveling. And he'd take a little nap in the third quarter. I'd say, Tommy, we got to go. Okay, ready to go. Or miss a beat, I don't think Kuz would ever take a nap during the So that was kind of like the difference.
You got that right.
That's why they were so good on television together.
Mona Kuzi with Mona Me and all that. And, remember Benoit Benjamin? Because that Kuzi loved because he could call him Benoit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I saw Kuz at the Worcester Centrum once with a beret.
Oh, not Chevron.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Great thing is the Kuz is still with us, and he's totally sharp.
Totally sharp.
No, 6, I forget.
Well, Simmons talked.
He's totally sharp. God knows. I'll take that trade off any day. So.
God, we miss Tommy. Oh my God, I miss him. Every time, I no disrespect to the guys that do the games. Scal's great. But every time I see a game, I go, I hear that voice. Anyways, well, Robert, Great stuff as always. We have been brought to you by Prizepicks, North America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Download today. Use code CLNS to get $50 when you play 5. Prizepicks. Run your game. Okay, mon ami, bonsoir.
Au revoir, monsieur.